name is Rich D'Arcy. I farm here in the Kingston area with my wife Beverly. Farm about 2,000 acres. Corn, non-GMO soys, some of the corn is non-GMO too. Dry edible beans and wheat. We've been working with no-till, trying to incorporate it more and more for about 30 years. Incorporating covers into the program in the last 7 to 10 years. Okay, the main reason we use cover crops is the root system enhances the soil structure. In the spring of the year, it draws excess moisture out of the ground, puts it back into the atmosphere, and you've already got life in the soil. The roots are exuding nutrients and stuff into the soil to feed the bacteria. Seems like the fields planted into a green cover just get off to a much faster start than the fields that go into bare ground.
So what kind of yields have you been able to achieve, and have the cover crops helped?
Different crops, like soybeans, lend themselves very well to no-till. We feel we run very comparable to the neighbors. Anytime I talk to them, we're right in the ballpark. And we're growing non-GMO beans, so if there's a yield drag there, it's the cover crops must be helping offset it because we're right there with them.
You were averaging the last few years, where would you average your soybean crop as far as yield? 19
was a little bit off. I think we averaged 46 or 47. 18 was a phenomenal soybean year. We were 72 bushel across the board on our soys. Every year is different. 20 is looking pretty good. Wheat, we've no-till wheat for 35 years, and we've got a 10-year average of about 107 bushel to acre, which we feel is very good for our area. In 2020, we were down a little bit on wheat, but we had half the acreage did not receive a drop of rainfall from June 5th till the day we harvested. So when you go 35 days with no moisture, that's kind of tough on filling the kernels.
Okay. Have you changed your nutrient plan because of cover crops? Have you reduced or increased any fertilizers?
Our overall fertility program, the pounds of P and K that we put out is still very comparable, but we get a very high percentage of those nutrients now come from the dairy application, the dairy manure application after wheat harvest. There's enough nutrient in that 10 to 12,000 gallon range to pretty much carry you at least 3 or 4 years out of a 5-year rotation.
Great.
We're not buying as much dry granular anymore.
Herbicides, have they been something that you've increased or decreased because of cover crops?
The herbicide application cost, we don't feel that we're spending any more. We've tweaked the system a little bit. The cover crop, you use soybeans as an example, the cover crop will be terminated along with the residual herbicide application, this 5 to 10 days after planting. So at that point we have a cover crop that's going to die. It's going to act as cover for another month. The residual herbicide is out there at that point. We use metribuzin dual. There's some pretty good generics that do the job. About 50% of our soybeans we touch up with a post application. But that means about 50% of the soys we don't have to touch up. So we're not having to make a second trip over everything. Scouting gets a little bit more intense. Anytime you try to save money, you have to earn it. Corn, the herbicide cost I don't think has changed at all. The non-GMO corn we have to spend a little bit more because we don't have the option of coming back with a Roundup application in the summer.
Rich, let's take a look at some crops.
Sounds good. Okay, this was a weed crop harvested mid-July. This field got about 12,000 gallon of liquid dairy manure, lightly incorporated with a joker. We're not positive that's the best tool yet, but it does do pretty good. We came in probably about 48 hours later and seeded a mix of, we got buckwheat, we got pearl millet, we've got volunteer wheat, obviously. Down in here we got rape that's coming, radish, and then there's 3 or 4 clovers. There's some yellow blossom sweet clover, some crimson clover, and some June clover. They will be a little bit slower. They get a little start in the fall, but they actually come on better in the spring, because obviously the pearl millet and the buckwheat and the oats will not come back in the spring. So in the spring we end up having some winter wheat and some clovers coming up, and then we'll no-till corn right into this field. This particular field will actually be grazed off. They'll be putting cattle on it probably in about a month. Rich D'Arcy here again. For anybody that was in our area here last year in September, we had a field day to show some of the covers that Michigan State had planted in along with some of ours and some plots. This is the same field, field 55. This is no-till corn. We happen to be near electric pole where we had to go around the pole. Basically, from the time the plat day was held, we did nothing to the field last fall except let everything grow. Standing here, this is an example, we've got turnip carcasses left from last year. I see there's some radish carcasses. We've got rape stems and still have a lot of the wheat stubble and stuff in here too. The part that we find seems to work pretty good is the more stuff you can have suck up that liquid manure, tie it up in a fibrous form and deteriorate very slowly. It just adds to the soil health. It just keeps the soil covered a little bit more. We did have a little problem last year. It was such an interesting fall. With the combination of the liquid manure, the turnips got so big that, and we had so much cover, that when we did get the hard freeze mid-December, we were finishing corn harvest, that was the only really hard freeze that the soil had all winter. And the turnips survived, and we come out this spring and we had turnips that were anywhere from 5 to upwards of 8 inches across. We actually brought the planter out in April with no seed in it just to see if the row cleaners would knock them out of the way. We've never had the turnips survive like that.
It sounds like you're a real believer of cover crops and that they help your soil health. What would you tell other people about that?
As far as telling other people about it, you've got to try it until you see the benefits of a couple years. It's just hard to imagine. But when you plant into a green cover, the whole dynamics are different. You can get a heavy rain shortly thereafter. The cover crop just helps protect the ground. The ground doesn't crust, it doesn't seal over. Emergence is much better in a cover crop situation.